Hey guys, welcome to Sleeping Stone Whispers Crescent Moon. Tonight's story gently drifts through 300 years of royal breakfasts, slow mornings, repeated rituals, quiet kitchens, and meals that barely ever changed. Nothing dramatic happens here, just the soft passing of time, warm bread, cooling tea, and centuries of calm routine. If you're tired, restless, or just need something peaceful to fall asleep to, this story is made for you. Let it play, let your thoughts slow down, and let sleep arrive naturally. If this kind of quiet history helps you relax, please like the video, subscribe to Sleeping Stone Whispers, and stay with us for many more soft, boring stories whispered from the past. The day began long before anyone important was awake. In the deep quiet of the palace, when the corridors were still dark and the stone floors held the night's cold, the kitchen slowly came to life. Nothing happened quickly. It never did. A single door would open, then another, followed by the soft sound of footsteps that had walked the same path every morning for years, sometimes for generations. The kitchen itself was large but calm, filled with heavy wooden tables worn smooth by time. The air smelled faintly of ash from the previous day's fire. Someone stirred the embers, not in a hurry, just enough to wake them. Flames took their time catching, as if they too understood that there was no need to rush. Royal breakfasts, despite their name, were rarely exciting at this hour. Water was poured into thick metal pots and placed near the fire. It would take a while to warm. No one watched it closely. They already knew how long it would take because it always took the same amount of time. Outside, the sky slowly shifted from black to a dull gray, though no one stopped to look. The work continued quietly, as it always had. Bread was brought out next. Not fresh, not new, but familiar. Loaves were sliced carefully, evenly, without thought. Butter sat nearby, still firm from the cool air, waiting to soften on its own. There was no rush to spread it. Breakfast would not be served until everything was exactly as expected. Eggs were counted, then counted again, even though the number never changed. Grains were measured into bowls that had been used for decades. Some of these bowls had belonged to kitchens long before the current servants were born. They carried small scratches and marks that no one noticed anymore. They were simply part of the morning. As the fire grew steadier, porridge was stirred slowly, in wide circles. The spoon moved at an unchanging pace, never fast enough to splash, never slow enough to stop. This was the kind of motion that allowed thoughts to drift, though most mornings passed without much thinking at all. The routine required no imagination. Somewhere far above, the palace remained asleep. Heavy curtains stayed closed. Long hallways echoed with nothing. The people who would eventually eat this breakfast had no idea how much quiet effort went into preparing something so simple. And even if they did know, it would not have mattered. Breakfast would look the same tomorrow. Tea leaves were placed into small containers, measured with care, though the flavor was already known. It was always mild. It was always safe. The cups waiting nearby were polished but plain, their designs faded from years of use. They were set out in the same order as yesterday, and the day before that, and the year before that. By the time the light outside grew a little brighter, everything was nearly ready. Not ready to impress, not ready to surprise, just ready to exist. The kitchen settled into a comfortable stillness, broken only by the soft crackle of firewood and the occasional clink of metal on stone. This was how royal mornings began for centuries. Quietly. Slowly. With nothing unexpected at all. And as the palace waited for its breakfast to be carried upward, the kitchens returned to their gentle silence, knowing they would repeat the same motions again tomorrow, and the next day, and for many years to come. The bells did not ring loudly. They never needed to. Their sound was soft, distant, and slow, drifting through the palace like a reminder rather than a command. These bells had been ringing in the same way for decades, sometimes centuries, marking the beginning of a day that would look very much like the one before it. In long hallways lined with stone and wood, the sound traveled gently. It touched closed doors, tall windows, and silent staircases, then faded without urgency. No one jumped at the sound. Everyone who heard it already expected it. The bells did not announce excitement or danger. They simply announced that morning had arrived again. Servants paused for a moment when they heard the bells, not because they had to, but because the pause itself was part of the routine. After the pause, they continued walking at the same pace as always. Nothing in the palace moved quickly at this hour. Speed was unnecessary and even discouraged. Somewhere above the kitchens, chambers remained dim. Heavy curtains blocked most of the early light. The bells did not wake anyone suddenly. They allowed waking to happen gradually, the way it always had. Eyes would open slowly. Breathing would remain steady. There was no reason to rise just yet. The bells had been cast long ago, their metal dulled by time. Their tone had softened over the years, losing any sharpness it once had. No one remembered exactly when they were first hung, and no one thought about it now. What mattered was that they continued to ring, every morning, without fail. Outside, the courtyard was still. A few birds moved along the edges of rooftops, but even they seemed quiet. The palace stood firm and unchanged, listening to its own familiar sound. After the bells fell silent, nothing immediately followed. That, too, was expected. Morning in the palace unfolded slowly, like a long stretch rather than a sudden movement. Breakfast would come later. Conversation would come later. For now, the day rested in its earliest moments. And so the palace remained still, wrapped in routine and repetition. Another morning had officially begun, marked by a sound everyone knew well, and no one questioned. The bells had done their job, and the day moved forward, gently, without effort. Bread was always there. It appeared every morning without surprise, resting quietly on wooden boards or simple cloths. The loaves were similar in shape, similar in color, and similar in taste to the ones served yesterday, and the day before that. Over the years, little changed about them, and no one expected change. The bread was not meant to be admired. It was meant to be sliced. A knife moved through it slowly, pressing down with steady pressure. Crumbs fell where they always fell, collecting in small, familiar piles. No one brushed them away immediately. There was no need. They would be cleaned later, just as they always were. Butter waited nearby, pale and firm in the cool air. It was placed out early so it could soften on its own. No one hurried this process. Soft butter arrived when it arrived. It had been learned long ago that forcing it only spoiled the texture. Time did the work better than hands. Slices of bread were arranged neatly, side by side, in numbers that had been decided long ago. No one questioned the count. It matched the number of plates waiting in silence on the table. Each plate had a weight to it, solid and dependable, and each would soon carry the same simple arrangement it had carried countless times before. As minutes passed, the butter slowly changed. It yielded slightly when touched, though not enough to melt. A small knife spread it across the bread in thin, even layers. The motion was practiced, calm, and unthinking. There was no decoration, no pattern, just coverage. Nothing about this process required conversation. In fact, it often happened without words at all. The sound of the knife against bread was soft and repetitive, blending into the background of the kitchen. Time seemed to stretch gently, marked only by these small movements. For the people who would eat this breakfast, the bread and butter would be noticed only briefly, if at all. It would be consumed slowly, without comment. And by the time the plates were cleared, the memory of it would already be fading. This simple pairing had passed through generations unchanged. Kings and queens came and went, fashions shifted, and years moved forward, but bread and butter remained steady. It was a quiet reminder that even in royal places, mornings were built from the simplest things, repeated patiently, day after day. Before the breakfast tables were set and before the halls fully woke, attention always returned to the fire. The hearth waited patiently, dark and cool, holding the faint memory of yesterday's warmth. Servants approached it without haste, knowing exactly what needed to be done and how long it would take. Old ash was cleared away slowly, not all of it, just enough to make room. Beneath it, a few glowing embers sometimes remained, still alive from the night before. These were treated carefully, as if they might disappear if disturbed too much. When none remained, fresh kindling was placed in its place, arranged in a familiar pattern that had been learned through repetition rather than instruction. Thin pieces of wood went in first, followed by slightly thicker ones. Each was chosen by feel, not by sight. Hands knew which pieces would catch easily and which would wait their turn. A small flame was introduced, and then everyone stepped back. The fire was not rushed. It was allowed to grow on its own. As the flames slowly strengthened, the hearth began to warm the surrounding stone. The change was subtle at first. No one commented on it. They simply adjusted their movement slightly, standing a little closer, then stepping back again. The fire settled into a steady rhythm, crackling softly but never loudly. Large pots were moved into position, not directly over the hottest part of the flame, but close enough to benefit from the heat. This placement rarely changed. It had been decided long ago through quiet trial and error, and the knowledge had been passed down without ever being written. While the fire worked, the servants waited. Waiting was part of the task. There was nothing else to do until the heat reached the right level. During this time, the kitchen remained calm, filled with the steady presence of warmth slowly returning to the room. The fire did not announce when it was ready. It simply reached a point where it no longer needed attention. The flames burned evenly, the wood settled, and the hearth became what it was meant to be for the morning, a source of quiet heat. This first fire marked the true beginning of breakfast, though few ever thought of it that way. It was just another step in a process repeated endlessly, warming the palace one slow flame at a time, exactly as it had for hundreds of years. Water was placed on the fire early, long before it was needed. Heavy pots were filled carefully, not to the top, but to a level that had been measured by habit rather than markings. Once set near the flames, the water was left alone. No one stood watching it. Everyone already knew how long it would take. At first, nothing happened. The surface of the water remained still, reflecting the dim light of the kitchen. The pot warmed slowly, almost imperceptibly. If someone passed by and placed a hand near it, they might feel a faint change, but even that took time. This waiting was expected and accepted. As minutes passed, the fire continued its quiet work. The water absorbed heat little by little, without sound. There were no bubbles yet, no steam, no sign of urgency. The kitchen moved around it calmly, attending to other small tasks, always returning to check without really checking. Eventually, a thin mist began to rise from the pot, barely visible. It drifted upward and disappeared into the air. This was the first signal, though no one reacted to it. It simply meant that things were proceeding as they always did. Nothing more. The pot was not stirred. There was no need. Hot water did not require encouragement. It arrived on its own schedule. The servants understood this well. They had learned long ago that rushing water only led to spills or uneven heat, both of which delayed the morning further. When the first quiet bubbles appeared at the bottom, they were small and easily missed. They rose slowly and vanished before reaching the surface. The water was warming, but not ready. It would still be some time before it could be poured for tea or used for washing. While waiting, the kitchen remained quiet. The fire crackled softly. Footsteps passed by at an unchanging pace. Outside, the morning continued to brighten, though inside, time felt suspended. Everything depended on the water, yet nothing was done to hurry it. At last, steam became steady, rising in a gentle stream. The water had reached its purpose. Even then, it was not used immediately. It was allowed to settle, to remain calm before being moved. Hot water, like everything else in the palace morning, was given time. This long wait happened every day. It was never mentioned, never praised, and never remembered. Yet without it, breakfast could not begin. And so the water heated, slowly and patiently, just as it had for centuries, asking for nothing but time. Grains were measured out early in the morning, long before anyone planned to eat them. The amounts were always the same, remembered by hand and eye rather than by written instruction. A scoop was dipped, leveled, and poured into waiting bowls with a motion that had been repeated so often it required no thought. The grains themselves were plain. Oats, barley, or wheat, depending on the place and the century, but never anything surprising. Their color was soft and dull, and their texture felt familiar between the fingers. They made no sound as they were handled, and no one paused to consider them. They were simply part of the morning. Once cooked, the grains were spooned onto plates made of heavy silver. These plates had a weight that was immediately noticeable when lifted. They had been polished many times over many years, though their surfaces showed small marks that could never be removed. Each mark told a quiet story that no one remembered. The contrast between the simple food and the fine plates went largely unnoticed. It had always been this way. Plain grains rested in expensive surroundings, and no one questioned the balance. The plates were chosen long ago, and the grains followed them without change. Steam rose gently from the food, but not for long. The grains were served warm, never hot. They settled quickly, spreading slightly across the surface of the plate. A spoon smoothed them into an even layer, leaving faint lines behind that soon faded. When the plates were ready, they were placed carefully on trays. Each tray carried the same number, arranged in the same order. Hands moved slowly and steadily, ensuring nothing shifted or spilled. There was no urgency. The journey from kitchen to table allowed plenty of time. By the time the grains reached the breakfast room, they had already begun to cool. This was expected. They would be eaten at a calm pace, with no rush and little attention. The grains would fill their purpose quietly and then be forgotten. For 300 years, mornings began this way. Simple grains, heavy plates, and no surprises. Just nourishment placed gently into the rhythm of another day, passing unnoticed, exactly as intended. Eggs arrived in the kitchens every morning in small, steady numbers. They were carried carefully, set down gently, and counted without discussion. The count rarely changed. It matched the same list that had been followed for years, sometimes longer than anyone could remember. Each egg looked much like the last. Their shells were pale, smooth, and slightly cool to the touch. Some carried faint marks from the straw they had rested in overnight. These marks were never washed away until the last moment. There was no need to hurry cleanliness when time was already set aside for it. When the eggs were cracked, the motion was slow and controlled. The shell split with a quiet sound, and the contents slipped into waiting bowls. No one rushed this step. A broken yolk was acceptable, but unnecessary, and careful hands avoided it whenever possible. Cooking followed familiar patterns. Eggs were boiled to the same softness each day, or gently warmed in a pan that never grew too hot. The heat was watched, not closely, but calmly. Years of repetition had taught exactly when to remove them from the fire. Once cooked, the eggs were peeled or arranged without decoration. They were not meant to impress. They were meant to be reliable. Salt was offered separately, though many never used it. The flavor was already known. Placed alongside bread or grains, the eggs completed the breakfast without changing its mood. They added substance, not excitement. Their presence was comforting precisely because it never varied. Century after century, eggs appeared on royal tables in this same quiet way. Kings aged, queens changed, and history moved forward, but the eggs remained. Familiar, unremarkable, and endlessly repeated, they filled the morning with a calm sense of sameness that no one thought to disturb. Morning arrived carrying no new instructions. The palace moved forward as it always had, guided by memory rather than decision. What had been done yesterday was done again today, without review and without question. This sameness was not noticed, because it had become the natural order of things. The breakfast table looked exactly as expected. Plates sat in their usual places. Cups waited where they always waited. Nothing was added, and nothing was removed. Even the smallest details matched the day before, from the spacing between dishes to the angle of the chairs. If anything had shifted, no one mentioned it. Food arrived in silence. Bread, grains, eggs, and tea appeared in the same sequence, carried by the same steady hands. The trays felt familiar in weight and balance. Servants moved through the room along paths worn smooth by years of walking the same lines. Those seated at the table noticed nothing unusual, because there was nothing to notice. The first bite tasted like the last one from yesterday. The warmth was the same. The texture was the same. Even the pace of eating followed a rhythm that had been set long ago. Time passed gently during the meal. No clocks were watched. No one felt hurried. The morning stretched out, unbroken by surprise or change. Conversation, if it happened at all, stayed low and brief, never interfering with the routine. When plates were cleared, they left behind the same empty spaces as before. Crumbs were brushed away, cups were lifted, and the table returned to its quiet state. Nothing marked this breakfast as different from any other. And so the day continued, built on repetition. In a world where so much could change beyond the palace walls, the morning meal remained steady. Yesterday had returned again, and it would return tomorrow, unchanged, waiting patiently to be repeated once more. Wooden trays were lifted from their shelves with care, though they were sturdy enough to be handled without it. Their surfaces were smooth from years of use, edges rounded by countless hands. Each tray carried the quiet marks of time, small scratches and faded stains that no one tried to remove anymore. When plates were placed onto them, the sound was soft and dull. Porcelain and silver met wood without echo. This was a sound known well in the palace, repeated every morning until it faded into the background. It signaled that breakfast was ready to move, but not in any hurried way. Trays were balanced evenly, one hand beneath, the other steadying the side. The weight was familiar. Muscles adjusted automatically, remembering the feel from yesterday and the many days before that. Steps taken with the trays were slow and measured, never rushed. As the trays traveled through corridors, they produced a gentle rhythm. Footsteps, breath, and the slight shifting of dishes blended together. The wood absorbed most of the sound, keeping the palace calm and undisturbed. Nothing rattled. Nothing clattered. Doors opened quietly, just enough to pass through. Curtains barely moved. The trays continued on their path, following the same route they always followed. Corners were turned carefully, not because they were difficult, but because that was how it had always been done. When the trays reached the breakfast room, they were lowered onto tables with the same soft sound. Wood touched wood, and then stillness returned. The trays rested, having completed their small journey. This simple movement happened every morning, unnoticed and unremembered. The calm sound of wooden trays was part of the palace's quiet language, a signal of routine, stability, and another day beginning exactly as expected. Tea leaves were measured with care, though the amount had long since been memorized. A small spoon dipped into the container, lifted, and paused briefly, as if considering the moment. Then the leaves were placed into the pot, resting at the bottom in a thin, uneven layer. Their dry scent rose faintly and then disappeared. Hot water was poured gently, never all at once. It flowed in a steady stream, darkening the leaves as it filled the pot. There was no rush to close the lid. The leaves needed time to settle, to move slowly through the water, and to begin releasing their familiar color. At first, the liquid remained pale. Only a slight change marked the beginning of the steep. The pot sat quietly, untouched. No one stirred it. Stirring was unnecessary and sometimes discouraged. The leaves knew what to do without interference. Minutes passed without notice. The tea deepened gradually, shifting from light to warm amber. Steam rose in thin, steady lines, carrying a soft scent that filled the room but never overwhelmed it. The warmth was comforting, not sharp. The pot remained where it was placed. Servants moved around it carefully, mindful not to disturb the process. Steeping was not something to hurry. The best tea, it was believed, arrived only when given enough time to be itself. When the tea was finally poured, it was done slowly. Cups were filled evenly, each receiving the same amount. By then, the leaves had finished their quiet work. The tea tasted exactly as expected. This slow steeping happened every morning, unchanged by season or century. Tea leaves resting in hot water, doing nothing quickly, became another reminder that royal mornings were built not on speed, but on patience and repetition. When breakfast was finally served, there was no immediate movement. Those seated at the table often remained still for a moment, hands resting, eyes lowered, as if allowing the morning to settle. This pause was not announced or instructed. It had simply become a habit over time. Silence filled the room naturally. It was not an enforced silence, but an accepted one. The clink of cups had already faded, and the soft sounds from the kitchen no longer reached the table. What remained was a calm stillness that felt familiar and unremarkable. Eating began slowly. Spoons lifted without sound. Bites were taken without comment. There was no need to speak, because nothing required discussion. The food was known. The setting was known. The day ahead could wait. Chairs remained steady. No one shifted unnecessarily. Even breathing seemed quieter, as if the room itself preferred calm. Windows let in gentle light, but nothing outside demanded attention. Inside, the focus stayed on the quiet act of eating. If words were spoken, they were few and low, often about nothing important. Most mornings passed without any conversation at all. Silence was easier, and it suited the pace of the meal. This habit continued year after year. Silence became part of breakfast, as reliable as bread or tea. It allowed time to slow, thoughts to drift, and the morning to unfold without pressure. In the quiet of the royal table, nothing needed to happen, and nothing ever did. Mornings were often cold, especially in the older parts of the palace where stone walls held on to the night air. Even as daylight crept in, the chill remained. Fires warmed some rooms, but not all, and breakfast was usually eaten before the warmth had fully spread. Porridge arrived at the table already beginning to cool. It was never steaming by the time it was served. This was expected and accepted. The bowls held the heat briefly, then released it into the air, leaving the porridge lukewarm and calm. Spoons moved through it slowly, creating gentle lines that quickly disappeared. The texture was smooth and familiar, offering no surprises. Each bite tasted the same as the last, and the one before that. There was comfort in knowing exactly what to expect. Hands sometimes wrapped around bowls or cups, using them for a little warmth. The heat was mild, never enough to chase away the cold entirely. It simply softened it. Coats or shawls remained in place, and no one complained. The contrast between the cold room and the warm food was small but noticeable. It reminded everyone that the day had only just begun. There was no urgency to change it. The cold would fade eventually, on its own time. Lukewarm porridge became part of the morning's rhythm. It slowed eating, encouraged patience, and matched the quiet atmosphere of the table. Nothing rushed. Nothing startled. For generations, these cold mornings returned again and again, bringing with them the same bowls, the same spoons, and the same gentle warmth. It was never remarkable, and that was exactly why it endured. The breakfast tables stood in the same places year after year, their legs firmly settled into the stone or wooden floors beneath them. Once positioned, they were rarely moved. There was no reason to. The room had been arranged long ago, and it continued to serve its purpose without change. These tables were heavy, built to last, and marked by time. Their surfaces showed faint scratches, softened edges, and areas polished smooth by repeated use. Cloths were laid carefully over them each morning, hiding most of these details, though the shape and weight of the table could always be felt beneath. Chairs were placed in familiar positions around the table. Each seat faced the same direction it always had. Even the distance between chairs remained unchanged. Anyone entering the room could tell where to sit without being told. The arrangement was understood. Plates and cups were set down in the same spots, guided by habit rather than instruction. The table seemed to expect them there. Nothing felt out of place, because nothing ever was. Because the table never moved, the morning felt anchored. The same view greeted everyone each day. The same light fell across the same surface. This steadiness made time feel slower, as if the hours themselves respected the table's stillness. Over centuries, many people came and went, but the table remained. It witnessed countless quiet breakfasts without reacting or changing. In its unmoving presence, mornings unfolded gently, supported by a piece of furniture that asked for nothing more than to stay exactly where it was. Milk was poured carefully, though it was never treated as something special. It arrived each morning in the same plain containers, cool and pale, with a quiet stillness to it. Before being served, it was checked briefly, more out of habit than concern, then carried to the table without ceremony. When it touched the cup or bowl, it made almost no sound. The surface settled quickly, smooth and calm. There was nothing to watch and nothing to wait for. Milk did not change much once poured. It simply remained as it was. The taste was familiar in the most ordinary way. It carried no sharpness, no sweetness worth noting. It blended easily with grains or tea, softening them without drawing attention to itself. Most mornings, it went unnoticed, though it was always present. Milk was sipped slowly or mixed without thought. No one paused to consider its origin or freshness. Those details had been handled earlier, elsewhere. At the table, the milk's role was simple, to be consistent. Over time, this familiarity became comforting. The taste did not surprise or distract. It supported the quiet mood of the morning and allowed the mind to remain still. Nothing about it demanded memory. For generations, morning milk arrived and departed in this same quiet way. It was poured, tasted, and forgotten, leaving behind only the calm sense that breakfast had proceeded exactly as it should. Even after the table was set and food placed before them, no one ate immediately. Time stretched quietly in those first moments, measured not by clocks but by small, familiar movements. Hands rested lightly on the table, eyes traced the edges of plates, and breath settled into a slow rhythm. The first bite was always delayed, not from hesitation, but from habit. This pause allowed the senses to adjust to the morning light, the temperature of the air, and the quiet presence of the room. Each sound, the soft clink of a spoon, the distant crackle of a fire, was absorbed slowly, without urgency. No one spoke during this time. Conversation was unnecessary. The routine had taught everyone to wait, to let the act of beginning breakfast itself unfold gradually. Even the food seemed to acknowledge this calm, giving a gentle warmth without demanding attention. Seconds passed into minutes. Spoons hovered, cups were lifted lightly, and then returned. The rhythm of waiting became part of the meal, unnoticed yet steady. It was as if the morning insisted on patience before any taste could be appreciated. By the time the first bite was taken, the world had slowed. Movements became deliberate, thoughts quieted, and the pace of the day remained unbroken. Time passed softly before the meal truly began, setting the tone for the gentle, unchanging rhythm of the rest of the breakfast. The spoons at the royal breakfast table had been used for decades, perhaps even longer. Their metal was worn smooth, edges softened by countless hands and repeated washing. They bore faint scratches, tiny reminders of meals past, though no one paid attention to them anymore. Each spoon felt familiar in the hand, perfectly balanced and quiet. When lifted to scoop porridge, grains, or eggs, it made only a soft, almost imperceptible sound against the plate. There was no clatter, no sharp noise. Just a gentle, steady rhythm that matched the calm pace of the morning. The weight of the spoons was comforting. It reminded those who used them of countless mornings before, when everything moved slowly and predictably. The same motion repeated: scoop, lift, bring to mouth, return to plate. Over the years, this motion became automatic, requiring little thought, yet providing a quiet consistency. Even when polished, the spoons retained a slight warmth from the morning, a subtle echo of those who had eaten before. Generations passed, but the spoons remained, holding the memory of all the breakfasts that had come before. Using the same spoons each day reinforced the quiet routine. It made the passage of time gentle, almost imperceptible, and reminded everyone that mornings in the palace were meant to be steady, predictable, and calm, unchanged by hurry, surprise, or interruption. Before the first bite was taken, some would pause to glance out the palace windows. The view was always familiar. The stone courtyards, the trimmed gardens, and the distant rooftops stretching under a pale morning sky. Nothing changed quickly, and nothing needed to. The world outside matched the calm inside. Light filtered softly through the glass, falling on tables and floors in slow, shifting patterns. Shadows stretched and moved imperceptibly, marking the gentle passage of time. No one watched them closely, the effect was noticed only in passing, adding to the quiet rhythm of the morning. Sometimes a bird moved across the courtyard or a leaf shifted in the breeze. These small motions were acknowledged briefly, then forgotten. The gaze out the window was not meant to observe, but simply to occupy a few moments while waiting for the first bite of breakfast. Hands rested lightly on the windowsill or the edge of the table. Thoughts drifted slowly, unhurried. The world beyond the glass existed in a distant, muted way, providing a sense of continuity without demanding attention. This quiet look became part of the morning ritual. It was a moment of stillness, a brief connection to the outside world, and a gentle way to pass time before the predictable, steady act of eating began. Toast appeared on the breakfast table with quiet reliability, golden brown and warm but never surprising. Its edges were crisp, its center soft, exactly as it had been for decades. No one expected anything more, and no one was disappointed. The predictability itself brought comfort. Slicing it, spreading butter, or laying it alongside eggs and grains followed the same gentle motions every morning. There was no rush, no clatter of plates, no sudden aroma that demanded attention. The toast simply existed, filling a familiar role in the quiet routine. Biting into it offered a simple satisfaction. The crunch was soft, the flavor mild. It was easy to chew, easy to swallow, and easy to ignore in the sense that it required no focus. Breakfast moved at a slow rhythm, and the toast fit seamlessly into it. Over years, the same method of preparing toast had been passed down. Each slice carried the memory of countless mornings, a steady companion in an otherwise repetitive routine. Its constancy reminded everyone that not everything in life, or breakfast, needed to change. Toast was not exciting. It did not compete for attention. Yet in its predictability, it became quietly comforting, a small reassurance that the morning would unfold just as it always had, gently, steadily, and without surprise. Breakfast in the palace was a slow, deliberate affair. No one hurried. Even when the food was ready, the first bite often waited, as though the morning itself demanded patience. Every movement, lifting a spoon, pouring tea, cutting bread, was measured and unhurried. Time seemed to stretch across the table. Minutes passed quietly, filled only with the soft sounds of utensils and the gentle hum of the fire. There was no urgency, no need to finish quickly. Even kings and queens ate at the same slow pace, allowing the calm of the morning to settle over them. Servants moved with the same careful rhythm, balancing trays and dishes without haste. The kitchen and dining hall were synchronized in quiet repetition, each step taken exactly as it had been for years. Rushing was unnecessary, even unwelcome. The act of eating became almost meditative. Each bite was familiar, each sip predictable. The slow pace allowed thoughts to drift, bodies to wake fully, and the mind to adjust to the day ahead. In this unhurried routine, the palace mornings felt safe and steady. Time passed softly, anchored by the calm knowledge that nothing needed to be rushed. Breakfast, like the day itself, unfolded gently, moment by moment, exactly as it had for generations. Each bite taken at the royal breakfast was deliberate, chewed slowly and carefully. No one hurried, and no one spoke while chewing. The rhythm of the teeth against bread, grains, or eggs became a quiet, almost hypnotic pattern, marking the gentle pace of the morning. The sounds were soft, just the faintest scrape of utensil against plate, the gentle movement of food in the mouth. These small noises blended with the quiet crackle of the hearth and the occasional clink of silver, creating a calm, steady background to the day's beginning. Chewing slowly allowed the mind to drift. Thoughts wandered without urgency. The taste of the food was mild, predictable, and comforting, reinforcing the slow pace. Each swallow was measured, each bite considered, though not in any meaningful way, just enough to maintain the rhythm. No one glanced at the clock. No one counted bites. Time itself seemed to follow the motion of the teeth, stretching gently and evenly across the table. The slow rhythm created a sense of continuity, a reminder that the morning would pass in quiet repetition. By the time the plates were nearly empty, the calm had settled fully over the room. The slow rhythm of chewing had set the tone for the day, ensuring that everything began without haste, without surprise, and in the same steady manner that had persisted for generations. Every morning, the same dishes returned to the table as if they had never left. Heavy silver plates, polished cups, and simple bowls appeared in their usual places, arranged with quiet precision. Nothing was added. Nothing was omitted. Their presence was steady, unchanging, and expected. The food they carried was equally familiar. Porridge, bread, eggs, and tea filled the plates and bowls exactly as they had yesterday and the day before. The arrangement was always the same: a loaf to one side, a bowl of grains in front, a cup of tea beside it. Even the smallest details, the placement of a spoon or the tilt of a cup, remained unchanged. Servants handled the dishes carefully, moving them from kitchen to table along paths worn smooth by countless mornings. Their hands knew exactly where to set each item, guided by habit rather than instruction. The trays made soft, predictable sounds as the dishes were lowered into place. For those at the table, the reappearance of these dishes was comforting. It created a sense of order and stability, reminding everyone that some things remained constant despite the passing of years. The repetition offered reassurance that the day would begin slowly, steadily, and without surprise. Even as centuries passed, these same dishes returned. They were silent witnesses to countless breakfasts, unchanged by fashion, taste, or the whims of time. In their familiarity, they carried the quiet rhythm of palace mornings, steadfast and reliable, ready to serve yet another unhurried day. Even as the seasons shifted outside the palace walls, the breakfast menu remained almost entirely the same. Winter, spring, summer, or autumn made little difference to what appeared on the table. The grains were the same, the eggs were the same, and the bread and tea rarely varied. Only small details, slightly fresher milk or a touch of seasonal fruit, marked the passing months. The cooks followed routines that had been established for years. Recipes were repeated exactly as they had been recorded long ago, if recorded at all. The same techniques, the same measurements, and the same timing ensured consistency. There was no rush to innovate. Variety was unnecessary when predictability brought comfort. Servants carried the food from kitchen to table with the same careful steps, unaware, or unconcerned, about the season beyond the palace gates. The air in the halls remained steady, filled with familiar aromas and the soft clatter of silverware, unchanged by snow, rain, or sun. Those seated at the table rarely noticed minor differences. The taste, warmth, and texture of their meal remained largely familiar. Breakfast offered a constant in a world that might otherwise shift and surprise. Over years and generations, this sameness reinforced the rhythm of palace life. Seasons might come and go, but the morning meal stayed reliably consistent. In this gentle repetition, mornings became predictable, stable, and quietly reassuring, an unchanging anchor in a slowly turning world. Porcelain cups were lifted from the tray with care, their surfaces smooth and cool to the touch. When placed on the table, they made a soft clinking sound that echoed lightly through the quiet dining hall. It was a gentle noise, never loud enough to disturb, but enough to mark the careful rhythm of the morning. Each cup had its assigned place, always the same as yesterday, and the day before that. The handles faced the same direction, the rims aligned evenly with the edge of the table. No one needed to be told, the pattern was memorized and repeated without thought. When tea or milk was poured, the liquid settled quietly, adding only a faint splash. The clinking continued as cups were adjusted slightly, never hurried, always deliberate. Even when lifted to the lips, the sound remained soft, a subtle reminder of the calm routine surrounding the meal. Servants moved around the table slowly, carrying trays with other cups in careful balance. The soft clinks marked the pace of their steps as much as the weight of their load. It was part of the morning's rhythm, predictable and unobtrusive. Over time, the soft clink of porcelain cups became part of the background of royal breakfasts. It was not exciting, nor was it remarkable. Yet it quietly reinforced the calm repetition of the morning, a tiny sound that helped anchor the slow, steady passage of time. Butter was never hurried. Each morning it rested quietly on the table or counter, pale and firm, waiting for warmth to coax it into softness. No one rushed the process. The servants knew from experience that forcing it would only ruin the texture. Time, and only time, could do the work properly. As minutes passed, the butter gradually yielded. Its edges softened first, spreading slowly across the surface. Hands occasionally checked it with a knife, pressing lightly to feel the change, but rarely intervened. The pace was deliberate, calm, and unchanging. By the time it was spread onto bread or stirred into grains, the butter had reached a gentle consistency. It was smooth, predictable, and mild, never surprising, never out of place. Each morning offered the same quiet satisfaction, neither too firm nor too runny. The slow softening became part of the rhythm of the kitchen. Servants could attend to other tasks while the butter softened, knowing it would be ready exactly when needed. The process was unremarkable, yet comforting in its reliability. For centuries, this gentle transformation happened the same way, day after day. Butter softened on its own schedule, reminding everyone that some things in the palace, like the morning itself, were meant to unfold at their own steady, unhurried pace. Breakfast was served in a quiet, deliberate order, repeated every morning without fail. Plates were carried from the kitchen by steady hands, each tray balanced carefully to avoid spills. No one rushed, every movement was slow, measured, and precise. Food was placed on the table exactly where it belonged. Bread went to the left, grains in the center, eggs on the right. Cups of tea or milk were added last. The order had been practiced for so long that it required no thought. Servants moved instinctively, following the rhythm of years. Trays were lowered gently, with soft clinks as silver and porcelain met the table. Nothing jostled, nothing was out of place. Each step in the process reinforced the calm predictability of the morning, keeping the palace in quiet balance. Even small details were attended to carefully, spoons aligned, napkins folded neatly, and bowls adjusted just so. The routine was unremarkable, but it mattered. Without it, the slow, steady pace of breakfast might falter. Generations passed, yet the gentle routine of serving order remained unchanged. It was a quiet choreography, unseen by many, but essential to the calm, measured beginnings of the day, ensuring that each morning unfolded as it always had. Step into the palace, and the morning felt as though it had already happened countless times. Every detail, the soft light spilling through tall windows, the slow clatter of utensils, the warm glow of the fire, was repeated exactly as it had been yesterday, and the day before. The same foods were placed on the table, the same dishes arranged in their familiar positions. Bread, grains, eggs, and tea arrived predictably, each bite as expected as the last. Even the servants' movements followed the same careful, measured rhythm, so that nothing ever seemed out of place. There was comfort in this repetition. No surprises intruded, no urgency demanded attention. Eyes wandered slowly over polished silver, smooth wooden tables, and steaming bowls, noticing everything and nothing at the same time. Time seemed to stretch without effort. Mornings blended seamlessly into each other, leaving little distinction between days. Breakfast became more than a meal, it became a gentle, unchanging ritual, grounding the palace in calm. For years and decades, these mornings repeated, identical in pace, appearance, and mood. It was a rhythm that required no thought, offered no excitement, yet carried the quiet assurance that the day would begin exactly as it had for generations. The aroma of warm bread drifted quietly through the palace kitchens each morning, soft and familiar. It was not sharp or overpowering, merely a gentle scent that marked the beginning of the day. Servants and residents alike had grown accustomed to it, recognizing it without thought. Bread, freshly sliced or slightly cooled from the fire, released its warmth into the air, mingling faintly with the soft smoke of the hearth and the subtle fragrance of tea leaves. The smell moved slowly, drifting along corridors and around corners, settling into every quiet nook. No one spoke of it. No one rushed to inhale it deeply. It was simply there, comforting in its consistency. Each morning, the smell reminded everyone that breakfast was ready, that the day was unfolding, and that all would proceed as expected. Even as centuries passed, the scent remained the same, unchanged by new rulers or shifting tastes. It was a small, steady marker of time, a gentle presence that connected the present morning to every morning before it. The familiar smell of warm bread became part of the rhythm of palace life. It was neither exciting nor remarkable, yet it grounded the senses, signaling that the calm, predictable passage of another morning had begun. Seated at the breakfast table, one could watch the morning unfold with little effort. Hands rested lightly on the table, eyes wandered over familiar dishes, and ears caught the soft, steady sounds of the room. Nothing demanded attention, yet everything could be noticed if one chose to look. The fire crackled quietly in the corner, warming the stone floor and sending faint shadows across the table. Steam rose gently from bowls of grains and cups of tea, curling in slow, unhurried patterns. Every movement felt deliberate and calm, reinforcing the peaceful rhythm of the morning. From the chair, the palace felt steady and predictable. Servants moved along practiced paths, carrying trays and adjusting items without disrupting the quiet. Plates clinked softly, spoons scraped gently, and the air carried the subtle scent of warm bread and butter. Even the smallest details could be observed, the polished sheen of silver, the soft tilt of a cup, the gentle rising and falling of the morning light. Nothing was new, nothing surprising, yet the repetition itself created a comforting familiarity. Quiet observations from the breakfast chair allowed the mind to wander gently, noticing the calm, predictable motions of the room. Here, in this slow, steady space, mornings passed without haste, leaving only a sense of order, patience, and gentle reassurance. Those seated at the breakfast table ate slowly, as though the day itself demanded patience. Each bite was deliberate, each sip measured. There was no rush, no eagerness, no sudden movements. Only the gentle, unchanging rhythm of a calm appetite. Food was tasted quietly, without comment. Bread, grains, eggs, and tea were consumed steadily, their flavors familiar and expected. The pace of eating mirrored the pace of the morning, slow, deliberate, and entirely predictable. Even when plates were nearly empty, there was no hurry to finish. Spoons moved methodically, cups were lifted gently, and hands returned to rest between bites. The calmness of those eating influenced everyone else in the room, reinforcing the steady, quiet atmosphere. This unhurried approach was a habit formed over generations. Kings and queens, servants and attendants, all adhered to the same measured pace. The slow rhythm of eating allowed the mind to settle, and the body to adjust to the day gradually, without interruption or urgency. In the calm pace of royal appetite, morning stretched peacefully. The steady consumption of breakfast became a ritual of patience, a quiet reminder that not everything in the palace, or in life, needed to be rushed. Each day began slowly, predictably, and gently, just as it had for centuries. When breakfast was finished, the plates were cleared quietly, without words or fuss. Servants moved slowly, lifting each dish with care, balancing trays with practiced hands. Nothing rattled, nothing spilled, and no one remarked on the process. Crumbs were brushed into small piles, cups and bowls stacked gently, and silverware returned to its place. The motions were familiar, repeated so many times that they required no thought. The room remained calm, the rhythm of the morning unbroken. Even as the plates were carried away, the quiet continued. The fire crackled softly, steam rose gently from empty cups, and the morning light shifted slightly across the table. No one hurried to replace or reset anything. Everything was allowed to settle naturally. The absence of comment, the gentle clearing of the table, reinforced the sense of order and patience that had marked the entire breakfast. The day continued in its slow, measured way, anchored by these small, unremarkable rituals. For centuries, plates had been cleared in this manner, silently and efficiently, completing the first act of the morning. And with the table empty once more, the palace returned to quiet stillness, ready to begin again tomorrow, exactly as it always had. Once the plates were cleared, the breakfast table stood still, untouched and familiar. Chairs remained in their usual positions, cups and spoons put away, and the surface returned to its polished, unadorned state. Nothing had changed. Nothing would change until the next morning. From any seat, the view of the table was always the same. Its weight, shape, and the lines of its wood were constant, offering a quiet reassurance. Even the smallest scratches and dents were predictable, reminders of years of repeated mornings and centuries of habit. The surrounding room contributed to the calm. Light fell evenly across the table, shadows stretched softly along its edges, and the air carried faint traces of the meal that had just ended. The view was familiar in every detail, offering comfort without demand. No one adjusted the table or rearranged its setting. There was no reason to. Its stillness reflected the steadiness of the palace, the continuity of routines, and the gentle repetition of time itself. The unchanging view of the table became a symbol of consistency. Generations passed, but the table, like the rhythm of breakfasts, remained a quiet anchor in the slow, deliberate mornings of palace life. In the palace, breakfast was never a surprise. Each morning followed the same rhythm, the same order, and the same taste. Bread, grains, eggs, tea, and milk arrived exactly as expected, set neatly on polished plates, and consumed at a measured, unhurried pace. This predictability created comfort. Those seated at the table knew exactly what to expect and when. There was no excitement, no sudden change, and no need for alertness. The familiar routine allowed the mind to rest while the body engaged in the quiet, necessary work of eating. Servants followed practiced movements, carrying trays along the same paths, placing dishes in the same positions, and returning utensils to their proper places. Each action reinforced the calm order of the morning. Even the smallest details, crumbs brushed aside, butter spreading slowly, tea steeping gently, added to the reassurance that everything would unfold as it always had. The absence of change became a source of peace. Breakfast, in this way, was more than a meal. It was a ritual of stability, a gentle anchor at the start of the day, and a reminder that in a world full of uncertainty, some things remained constant, steady, and quietly predictable. Over time, the repeated motions of breakfast became more than routine, they became a quiet source of comfort. Bread was sliced, butter spread, tea poured, and eggs placed exactly as they had been for generations. Each action, performed slowly and deliberately, offered a gentle reassurance. The same spoons, plates, and cups returned day after day, carrying food that was always familiar. Even the smallest sounds, the soft clink of silver, the gentle scrape of a spoon, blended into a steady rhythm that seemed to slow time itself. Those seated at the table grew accustomed to the predictability. The repetition required no thought, no planning, no surprise. It allowed minds to drift, bodies to settle, and mornings to unfold with a calm certainty. The comfort was subtle, unnoticed at first, but unmistakable once acknowledged. The unchanging routine became a quiet anchor in a palace where centuries passed and rulers changed, yet mornings remained steady. In this way, repetition transformed into solace. What could have felt monotonous instead offered peace, proving that even the smallest, most ordinary rituals could hold a profound sense of calm when repeated slowly, patiently, and without interruption. As breakfast drew to a close, a final sip of tea marked the gentle end of the morning ritual. The cup was lifted slowly, steam curling upward in soft, unhurried spirals. The warmth touched lips briefly before returning to the table, leaving behind a faint, familiar scent. No one rushed this last sip. It was a quiet punctuation, a signal that the first act of the day was complete. The tea, like everything else at breakfast, was predictable. Neither too strong nor too weak, neither too hot nor too cool. Its consistency reinforced the calm rhythm of the morning. Hands rested lightly on the cup, eyes lingered for a moment on the polished silver and warm wooden surfaces of the table, and the mind allowed itself to drift. The palace remained quiet, filled only with the soft background sounds of the hall, the crackle of the fire, the gentle movement of servants, and the faint hum of the day beginning beyond the windows. Hands rested lightly on the cup, eyes lingered for a moment on the polished silver and warm wooden surfaces of the table, and the mind allowed itself to drift. The palace remained quiet, filled only with the soft background sounds of the hall, the crackle of the fire, the gentle movement of servants, and the faint hum of the day beginning beyond the windows. This final sip was both ordinary and reassuring. It marked the end of repetition, yet reminded everyone that tomorrow, the same calm ritual would begin again. In the steady, measured pace of royal breakfasts, even a single sip of tea carried the quiet weight of centuries. After the last bites were eaten and the final sips of tea were taken, the morning meal ended slowly. Plates remained on the table for a few moments longer, spoons resting beside bowls, cups still half full. No one hurried to clear them, and no one spoke to announce that breakfast was over. The pace of movement remained deliberate. Servants adjusted trays gently, lifted dishes with care, and carried them away along familiar paths. Each step, each motion, was practiced and precise, leaving nothing sudden or jarring in the quiet room. Even as the table gradually emptied, the calm of the morning persisted. Steam rose faintly from still warm dishes, the fire crackled softly in the corner, and sunlight shifted slowly across polished surfaces. The rhythm of the day had begun, but without urgency, without hurry. The slow ending of breakfast mirrored the slow beginning. Every detail, from the clearing of plates to the quiet settling of the table, reinforced a sense of order and continuity. Time passed gently, leaving behind only the quiet satisfaction of another morning completed exactly as it always had. In the palace, the ending of the meal was not abrupt. It was a soft, measured transition, a bridge between repetition and the rest of the day, allowing the calm of centuries-old routine to linger a little longer. Once the table was cleared and the last cups returned to the kitchen, breakfast began to fade from conscious thought. The meal, so carefully prepared and slowly consumed, became a quiet memory, already settling into the familiar pattern of daily routine. Details of the food, the grains, eggs, bread, and tea, slipped gently from attention. The soft clinks of silver, the warmth of bowls, and the subtle aroma of butter and bread lingered only faintly, like a whisper in the mind. They were noted, acknowledged, and then allowed to dissolve into the calm repetition of palace life. The acts themselves, pouring, spreading, cutting, stirring, were no longer observed, for they had become automatic. Hands knew what to do without thought, and eyes took in the familiar scene without noticing. Breakfast had already passed, leaving only the sense of its presence. This fading into memory was part of the rhythm. Each morning was mirrored in the next, almost indistinguishable from the one before. The repetition made the past meal less immediate, less urgent, yet subtly comforting, a steady thread in the fabric of palace life. Breakfast became a gentle echo, remembered but never surprising. It was no longer an event, only a quiet fixture of daily existence, folded into the predictable, unhurried rhythm that had guided centuries of mornings. After breakfast had faded into memory, the table was left precisely as it had been before the meal began. The polished surface reflected the soft morning light, now uninterrupted by plates, cups, or spoons. Everything returned to its quiet, still state, awaiting the next repetition. Chairs remained in their assigned places, each aligned with careful precision. The symmetry of the room, unbroken, offered a calm sense of order. No one adjusted anything unnecessarily. The table needed no attention once the work of breakfast was done. The small marks and scratches on the wood, reminders of countless meals before, stood out faintly in the morning light, unnoticed but steady. They carried the quiet history of centuries, silent witnesses to the endless repetition of royal mornings. Nothing was added. Nothing removed. The table existed as it always had, a reliable anchor in the calm, measured rhythm of palace life. Its stillness signaled that breakfast was over, yet it also promised continuity. Tomorrow, the table would return to the same arrangement, carrying forward the unchanging order. In leaving the table exactly as before, the palace preserved the quiet predictability of mornings. Stability lingered in the air, and the slow passage of time seemed anchored to the familiar, unaltered surface, waiting patiently for the next day to begin. When the next morning arrived, nothing felt new. The sunlight fell in the same gentle angle through the tall windows, the fire in the hearth crackled with the same soft rhythm, and the familiar sense of bread and tea began to drift through the quiet halls. Plates, cups, and spoons returned to their usual places. Grains were measured, eggs boiled, and tea leaves steeped with the same calm precision. Servants moved along familiar paths, carrying trays and arranging dishes exactly as they had yesterday, and the day before that. Those seated at the table followed the same unhurried motions, lifting spoons, sipping tea, cutting bread, and chewing slowly. Each action mirrored the previous morning, down to the smallest detail. Nothing surprised, nothing hurried, and nothing demanded attention. Even the quiet pauses, hands resting, eyes wandering, the soft observation of the room. repeated seamlessly. Time itself seemed to follow the same gentle rhythm, flowing steadily without interruption. And so, another morning began exactly like the last, indistinguishable in its calm, repetitive perfection. It was predictable, unremarkable, yet deeply comforting, a reminder that the slow, measured pace of palace breakfasts would continue unchanged for generations to come. Over the span of 3 centuries, royal breakfasts repeated with almost perfect consistency. Bread was sliced, grains were served, eggs were cooked, and tea was poured exactly as it had been for hundreds of years. Generations came and went, but the rhythm of the morning remained unbroken. The same tables, cups, and spoons returned each day, their polished surfaces carrying the quiet marks of time. Servants moved along familiar paths, performing each task with calm precision. Nothing changed in ways that mattered. Even small details, the soft clink of silver, the aroma of warm bread, or the slow steeping of tea, remained consistent, reassuring, and familiar. For those seated at the table, mornings offered predictability. The same tastes, textures, and sounds created a comforting repetition. There was no rush, no surprise, no need for attention. Breakfast became less an event and more a gentle ritual, anchoring each day in a quiet continuity. 300 years passed, yet the essence of these mornings never altered. The calm, unhurried meals, the routine of preparation and service, and the silent, measured movements of all involved became a timeless pattern, a soft, steady pulse connecting centuries of palace life. In this unchanging repetition, mornings became a refuge. Comfort lay not in excitement or novelty, but in the predictable, patient unfolding of each day, exactly as it had been for centuries. At last, the morning meal concluded, signaling the gentle transition from the slow, measured rhythm of breakfast to the rest of the day. Plates had been cleared, cups returned, and spoons laid aside. The table, polished and still, stood quietly as it had before the meal began. The calmness lingered in the room. The fire crackled softly, faint steam rose from residual warmth, and the faint aroma of bread, butter, and tea still clung to the air. Servants moved with the same careful grace, completing the final tasks without hurry or comment. Those who had eaten remained seated for a moment longer, letting the quiet settle around them. The ritual of breakfast had ended, yet its influence persisted, a slow, steady echo of routine that gently anchored the day. No surprises, no sudden changes, no urgency. The palace had begun another day in perfect rhythm, each motion, each taste, and each quiet moment contributing to centuries of unchanging mornings. Breakfast was complete, and the day continued, softly, predictably, and exactly as it always had. In the slow, deliberate passage from first bite to final sip, the royal breakfast had fulfilled its purpose. To start the day with calm, repetition, and gentle predictability, leaving the palace ready for whatever came next, still guided by centuries of habit.